That is brilliant. I have been talking to you all and once again forgot to unmute my microphone. Unmuted it on OBS. Forgot to actually push the button on the microphone. So, hello all. Welcome. I hope that the volume levels are okay. You'll have to let me know how the music is, if it needs to be turned up so you can hear it better or turned down so you can hear me better. Hopefully we all stay awake, because it has been a very, very long day for me. But since I didn't get to stream last night, I wanted to stream tonight. The audio seems okay? Okay, good, baby. Yes, I went to bed at, I think, 10:30 last night. Oh, I'm sounding perfect. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I went to bed at 10:30 last night. Laid in bed listening to some music for a while. Had to get up at 3 a.m. Didn't have to get up at 3 a.m. Didn't actually get up at 3 a.m. Rolled out of bed at 3:30 in the morning. To get to work by 5. And then at the end of work, I had a parking violation notice on my windshield because I'm not authorized to park in the parking lot of my employer. So that's the kind of day it has been. But now we are going to forget that. We are going to read once again from The Wizard of Oz. Yeah, when I came out, and I parked where I did because there's a church in our parking lot. And I know they sometimes do stuff on Saturdays, and it's like a narrow aisle. Not narrow, but the spaces are straight in, and we have an aisle along our building. And then there's an aisle where the church is. And then there's a car wash, and people come out of the car wash and zoom down there and like to park in there to dry their cars. The car wash provides an area for that. Nobody uses it. It's one of those great mysteries. So I decided to park in like the common area that's between all the buildings in our parking lot. And I come out, and there's a notice that says that I was parked overnight without authorization. Like, I didn't get there until maybe 4:55 this morning, and they ticketed me at 5:37 for parking overnight. I know I can just go in Monday to the administrative assistant and say, like, can you take care of this? Because it says that if my car is found there again, I'll be towed. Well, obviously my car is going to be there again. I work there, you bastards. But that's not how time works. What's not how time works? Time just is. Time, space. It works how it works, apparently. It's wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, you know. But it was just like, seriously? Yeah, I have a feeling what happened, because there is no overnight parking, but they've never specified, because even as employees, we've been told, there is no overnight parking. But it's not uncommon for employees to come in between 4 and 7 a.m. because we also deal with customers that are on the East Coast and we're on the West Coast. So our 4 a.m. is the East Coast 7 a.m. and we can very well tell them, sorry, you have to wait till 10 a.m. because we're in bed. So like I said, I know it's not a big deal. I should have just laughed it off, but it just really made me angry. Because I'm not even sure if the security company name on the violation notice, and I'm doing air quotes like you can see me, I don't think that's the security company that the property owner uses. I think that the church saw my car and got pissy because they think they own the whole parking lot, and they called them. But then it's like it was 5:37 in the morning. But there was something going on at the church, so I don't know. Like I said, I'll get it taken care of Monday, but it just really, really irritated me. In other news, I have new tires. Yay. And the car passed its smog test, and I paid the registration. I don't have the stickers yet. But enough of my bitching and complaining. I shall not let the bastards get me down. We are going to read in small little bits The Wizard of Oz. I had not realized until I really started looking into this, there are 165 editions of The Wizard of Oz. It was first published in 1900 and then continued to be updated, and with each new edition, I guess things changed. I actually have found a copy of the 1899 version with a April of 1900 publishing date. So this is definitely one of the early versions of The Wizard of Oz. And basically what we are going to do is consider people in the future, maybe aliens, maybe life on Earth has ceased to exist as we know it. And aliens, or cat girls, or whatever life is on Earth now, knows nothing of our history, knows nothing of us, but they have found the collected tales of Oz by L. Frank Baum, and they are reading these as our sacred texts. They are reading these as the lessons and the values that we lived by. And we are going to see what lessons and what morals they would have learned from these books. So now let us begin our studies, my children. Chapter 1: The Cyclone. Now, do they know what a cyclone is? I don't know. Let's assume they don't. The Books of Oz is all they have found. Though somehow they can read English, but it's like on TV and the movies. It's the Americanization of the universe. Everyone knows English. We don't question it. We just accept it and embrace it. Let us begin our reading. Dorothy lived in the midst of the great Kansas prairies. Music is slightly a bit too loud. Yeah, I might have gotten away from the mic. I don't like this music. Like, really do not like it. I also don't like the new OBS overlay. Oh, this is a good song. This is a good song for us to begin on. Now, where was I? All right. Book 1, Chapter 1. The Cyclone. Exactly. Upheaval, sudden change. Perhaps this chapter will explain to us how life began. Or what led to the life that was there, or perhaps what led to the end of life. Let us keep that in mind. We are reading about upheaval or change. Dorothy lived in the midst of the great Kansas prairies with Uncle Henry, who was a farmer, and Aunt Em, who was the farmer's wife. Their house was small, for the lumber to build it had to be carried by wagon many miles. There were 4 walls, a floor, and a roof, which made one room. And this room contained a rusty-looking cooking stove, a cupboard for dishes, a table, 3 or 4 chairs, and the beds. Uncle Henry and Aunt Em had a big bed in one corner, and Dorothy a little bed in another corner. There was no garret at all, and no cellar, except a small hole dug in the ground called a cyclone cellar, where the family could go in case one of those great whirlwinds arose, mighty enough to crush any building in its path. It was reached by a trapdoor in the middle of the floor, from which a ladder led down into the small, dark hole. So, what can we gather from this paragraph? Obviously, the people of this planet lived very simply, very plainly. They lived in a single-room house. 4 walls, a floor, and a roof. Unrelated to the subject that we're discussing this, but I'm glad they specified that there was a roof. Yes, home was built with great effort. They had to bring the wood in by wagon, which means there must not have been very many forests. Perhaps deforestation had already begun. They had to bring the wood in from so far away. And how frightening life must have been that they dug holes in the ground to escape from these sudden changes. So they must have known that the change was coming. They must have had forewarning. But how did they know the changes were coming? What warning signs did they have? Who did they think was going to cause this great change? Change was so regular that they prepared for it. But if change is regular, then is it change? If change is the normal, then what is there to prepare for? These are the questions we shall ponder. And why did they dig a hole in the ground? Were they going to hibernate? Were the people that lived here plants? Were they seeds? Going to bury themselves in the ground so that they could sprout up afterwards? These were strange, strange creatures. Are these people living in a paradox, attempting to prepare for change that they will never know the time of arrival? They might be. If you prepare for change, does change ever truly arrive? And it says that these great whirlwinds could crush any building in their path. What were these whirlwinds? What sent them? What caused them? Did they anger some great being? Was their creator punishing them with these cyclones? Were they sent to wipe out Earth? To wipe out Earth, yeah, brilliant. Nothing can wipe out the Earth. I promise you the Earth will survive long after we are gone. But was something or someone trying to destroy life on Earth that it might be repopulated with a new life? You know, it may be related to the lack of forests. That is a good point. All these cyclones being sent, perhaps the cyclones first wiped out the forests. That's why there was no wood. No wood with which to build the homes nearby. They had to bring it from so far away. Perhaps this was meant to be a sign that they shouldn't build there. They should have built their houses where there was wood to build houses. Perhaps that was just the beginning of their mistakes. The deforestation was the first cyclone, perhaps. Perhaps it was. The deforestation was the first cyclone and they didn't learn. They just used wagons to bring wood to where they wanted to build instead of going to where there were still forests. Oh, these silly, silly people. Let us see if the next paragraph can give us any enlightenment. When Dorothy stood in the doorway and looked around, she could see nothing but the great gray prairie on every side. Not a tree nor a house broke the broad sweep of flat country that reached the edge of the sky in all directions. The sun had baked the plowed land into a gray mass, with little cracks running through it. Even the grass was not green, for the sun had burned the tops of the long blades until they were the same gray color to be seen everywhere. Once the house had been painted, but the sun blistered the paint and the rains washed it away. And now the house was as dull and gray as everything else. So it seems that life was definitely not winning the battle from the very beginning of this story. That is a good point. Perhaps they did anger the sun. Perhaps the sun is sending these cyclones. It has blistered the paint. It has burned the grass. It has turned everything gray. And then the sun went away and sent the rain that washed the paint off. The sun is the bringer of change and disruption. That makes sense. We shall have to keep that in mind as we continue reading our text. For if the sun is the bringer of change and disruption, then there must be another force that can balance it. Hopefully we will learn what that force is. For surely we must find hope somewhere. When Aunt Em came there to live, she was a young, pretty wife. The sun and wind had changed her, too. They had taken the sparkle from her eyes and left them a sober gray. They had taken the red from her cheeks and lips, and they were gray also. She was thin and gaunt, and never smiled now. When Dorothy, who was an orphan, first came to her, Aunt Em had been so startled by the child's laughter that she would scream and press her hands upon her heart whenever Dorothy's merry voice reached her ears. And she still looked at the little girl with wonder that she could find anything to laugh at. So it's not just the sun. The wind was also working against them. The sun and the wind were sucking the life out of everything. Dorothy must be there as their savior. Dorothy must have been meant to bring life back, to show them what they had lost. Yes, the elements were definitely at work here. But are the elements intelligent on their own? Or is there still some other force? Elemental gods, yes, the elemental gods, very good. There must be elemental gods that held great power over this land. But it doesn't seem the people know it. There's been so far no mention of them worshiping or sacrificing to these gods. Perhaps that is what happened. The people forgot. Perhaps these people forgot their gods. And the gods took their life away. It was a sacred land that was sullied by heathens who did not worship. That may be, but if someone does not worship a god that they do not know, are they to be blamed? Perhaps these gods were forgotten long, long ago, until these people and their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents did not know. They forgot the gods, and in turn the gods attempted to remind them through hardship. That is possible. That is very possible. Or what if when the people forgot their gods, the gods forgot their people? The gods stopped providing the things that made life colorful and happy. We shall have to continue reading on to discover the true meaning, the true lesson that we are to learn from this. Okay, so far the lesson is life in this land of Kansas sucked. That is a good point. Perhaps in forgetting the gods disappeared, and there was nothing to hold back the forces of nature. Perhaps the gods had been protecting this little world from their raging sun. And without the gods' protection, The sun just did as it pleased. We shall continue. Uncle Henry never laughed. He worked hard from morning till night, and did not know what joy was. He was gray also, from his long beard to his rough boots, and he looked stern and solemn, and rarely spoke. It seems these people's lives was very joyless. It was very hard work, but what rewards did they have? It seems a very strange system where there is no reward for hard work. There is no reward for living a good life. But perhaps this is the before. Hopefully we will find that this is life before something and life after was better. Nature is the bringer of change, disturbance, and erosion. Without the power of gods, people's lives become dull and purposeless. Yes. And we can't say for certain it was gods, but certainly something left these people. And once it was gone, life did indeed become dull and purposeless. And also, nature is a cruel bitch. Blisters your paint, kills your grass, sends cyclones. Nature is not nice. I mean, look at poor Uncle Henry. Never laughs, works from morning till night, but he has no joy. What sad lives these people lived. Perhaps that was their undoing, simply that they had lost their joy. It was Toto that made Dorothy laugh, and saved her from growing as gray as her other surroundings. Toto was not gray. He was a small black dog with long, silky hair and small black eyes that twinkled merrily on either side of his funny wee nose. Toto played all day long, and Dorothy played with him and loved him dearly. So perhaps Toto is to be the savior and not Dorothy. Perhaps dogs held the key. Without dogs, life is meaningless. I am sliding out of my chair. It has nothing to do with the story. I just thought I would let you know in case you hear the chair squeaking. Okay. We are safe from falling on our asses on the floor for now. Yes, dogs are the bringers of joy and love. Why would the dogs forsake their people, though? I mean, that is so sad to think that dogs would forsake their humans. These people must have done something terribly wrong to be forsaken by the dogs. That is interesting. The dogs are the guardians. The dogs keep the souls youthful and alive and joyous. Yes, indeed, without dogs, spirits do wear away. It's very sad. Let us continue on. Today, however, they were not playing. Uncle Henry sat upon the doorstep and looked anxiously at the sky, which was even grayer than usual. Dorothy stood in the door with Toto in her arms and looked at the sky too. and Em was washing the dishes. It seems that our change is upon us. And learn the lesson of Aunt Em. Even if the world is going to end, you wash those damn dishes. Ain't nobody wanting dirty dishes in the sink. The world ending is not an excuse. But this must be very serious. Even Toto wasn't playing. It's just so very gray. From the far north, they heard a low wail on the wind, and Uncle Henry and Dorothy could see where the long grass bowed in waves before the coming storm. There now came a sharp whistling in the air from the south, and as they turned their eyes that way, they saw ripples in the grass coming from that direction also. Do you think that the directions, maybe the different directions are associated with different elements, or different gods, or different beings? Because the whistling came from the south. Yes, in the face of the cyclones, continue to do your duty as long as you can. You must continue to be, I don't know if I would call it obedient, but you definitely must keep going. Carry on. Steadfast, yes. Perhaps the wind holds command of the south. It seems that way. Or else the wind lives in the south. Suddenly, Uncle Henry stood up. "There's a cyclone coming, Em," he called to his wife. "I'll go look after the stock." Then he ran towards the sheds where the cows and horses were kept. Aunt Em dropped her work and came to the door. One glance told her of the danger close at hand. "Quick, Dorothy," she screamed. "Run for the cellar." So obviously these people knew what this cyclone meant. We don't know how they knew, but they knew that this cyclone was bad. But Uncle Henry also wants to save his animals. He wants to look after the stock. Which makes sense, because if Toto is the only source of joy, then surely the cows and the horses and the other livestock, it doesn't seem to be doing much, but perhaps that's all that is keeping them from death. Perhaps this cyclone has done the same things in the past that it's about to do. That would make sense, but if it's done this before, then why build the house there? Why not build a house that could withstand the cyclone? If they know that digging this hole in the ground will create a safe space, why not just build the whole house underground? These are foolish, foolish people. But at least the cyclone, you notice, has brought some passion back. They're not just being gray and boring and standing there. And Emma actually drops the dishes that she was washing and screams for Dorothy to get to the cellar. That's as animated as any of the characters in this story have been so far. So perhaps the cyclone is to break them out of their rut, to get some life in them. Change brings energy. It certainly does. Perhaps it is the fear of death that brings life. If they fear this cyclone, it makes them realize that they need to live. Perhaps that is one of the lessons we need to learn. This is a strange book. Toto jumped out of Dorothy's arms and hid under the bed, and the girl started to get him. And Em, badly frightened, threw open the trapdoor in the floor and climbed down the ladder into the small, dark hole. Dorothy caught Toto at last and started to follow her aunt. When she was halfway across the room, there came a great shriek from the wind, and the house shook so hard that she lost her footing and sat down suddenly upon the floor. A strange thing then happened. The house whirled around 2 or 3 times and rose slowly through the air. Dorothy felt as if she were going up in a balloon. The north and south winds met where the house stood and made it the exact center of the cyclone. In the middle of a cyclone, the air is generally still, but the great pressure of the wind on every side of the house raised it up higher and higher until it was at the very top of the cyclone. And there it remained and was carried miles and miles away, as easily as you could carry a feather. So it seems the trapdoor was not a safety, not for Dorothy. The cyclone knew what it was doing, and it didn't let her reach that safety. Perhaps Dorothy and Toto angered the cyclone. After all, Toto brought joy. Dorothy brought laughter. And the cyclone came to remove her. What of the symbolism of being raised up in the air? It's to say that in the middle of a cyclone, the air is generally still, but the house was raised up, so this is no ordinary cyclone. I think the cyclone's purpose is definitely to remove the joy and the laughter. Yes, tearing them away from the earth. So what awaits them? They've been torn away from the earth. Have they been taken to the symbolic heaven? Have they been flung out into space? These were very strange people. Very strange. It was very dark, and the wind howled horribly around her. But Dorothy found she was riding quite easily. After the first few whirls around, and one other time when the house tipped badly, she felt as if she were being rocked gently, like a baby in a cradle. I think so. I think perhaps it is moving them to a better place. Somewhere more suited for their joy. Perhaps instead of them being there to bring joy, perhaps the gray life was trying to suck the joy from them. And the cyclone has taken them to somewhere that they won't be sucked dead. For it does say she felt as if she was being rocked like a baby in a cradle. So it seems that this cyclone cares for her. It is protecting her. It is comforting her. We may have misjudged the cyclone. Perhaps the cyclone is not bad. Perhaps it is a protector. Perhaps it is mother. Cyclone is mother, as nurturer. I suppose we shall have to see where it has left Dorothy. Toto did not like it. He ran about the room, now here, now there, barking loudly. But Dorothy sat quite still on the floor and waited to see what would happen. Once, Toto got too near the open trapdoor and fell in, and at first the little girl thought she had lost him. But soon she saw one of his ears sticking up through the hole, for the strong pressure of the air was keeping him up so that he could not fall. She crept to the hole, caught Toto by the ear and dragged him into the room again, afterward closing the trap door so that no more accidents could happen. Yes, it does seem to be trying to bring new joy to their life and keep them safe, even little Toto. When he fell into the trap door, the wind kept him up. It kept him from falling so that Dorothy might grab her little doggie and keep her friend, and they would both be safe. So yes, change is a positive thing. Cyclones are good after all. So what can we learn from this? To not fear change? To perhaps learn how to speak English clearly? I'm still working on that one. But as I said, it's been a long day. But yes, I think we should learn that change is a positive thing. Perhaps we can prepare too much for it. What if the lives of Aunt Em and Uncle Henry were gray because they spent all their time preparing? They spent all the time preparing and fearing the cyclone. I am glad that Toto survived. It would have been very sad if he hadn't. Yes, over-preparation for change does make life dull. I mean, don't get me wrong, earthquakes, great fun. If you don't own anything. But, you can only prepare so much. If you live your life constantly expecting the change, expecting the unexpected, well, then it's not unexpected anymore. And you're just wasting your life. You're wasting your life fearing something that may or may not happen. Let us see what the next pages contain. Hour after hour passed by. Okay, let's start that one over. Hour after hour passed away, and slowly Dorothy got over her fright. But she felt quite lonely, and the wind shrieked so loudly all about her that she nearly became deaf. At first she had wondered if she would be dashed to pieces when the house fell again. But as the hours passed and nothing terrible happened, she stopped worrying, and resolved to wait calmly and see what the future would bring. At last she crawled over the swaying floor to her bed and lay down upon it, and Toto followed and lay down beside her. In spite of the swaying of the house and the wailing of the wind, Dorothy soon closed her eyes and fell fast asleep. And that is the end of chapter 1, and I think it leaves us with a good lesson. Worrying does nothing. Instead of fretting and worrying, Dorothy decided to simply stop worrying and go to bed. And I'm sure she was much happier for it. Maybe that is what we all need to do. Maybe that is why life with these people was so horrible. They worried. They worried and worried and worried. And then the cyclone finally came along, and all it wanted to do was relocate the house. Exactly. Going with the flow of change can bring interesting and fun things. And at the very least, once you stop worrying, you can sleep. That is very important. Alrighty. Let's see. chapter 2 is called The Council with the Munchkins. Though I will say, if this was aliens reading this, the font that's in the book, it actually looks like it says The Council with the Minchkins. Never choose a font that does use weird. Because The Council with the Minchkins, very different thing. Minchkin is my rap name. Is the Council of the Minchkins your band name? Did you used to play bass for Council of the Minchkins? I'm debating if I want to get up and turn the air conditioner on because it's getting warm again. You used to? You used to play bass for Council of the Minchkins? Then a cyclone came and took your bass guitar? Well, that was sad. That's mean. Bad. That was a bad cyclone. That was not a good cyclone like our story has. Okay, I am going to go and turn the air conditioner on to get some air circulating around. So I will be back in like 30 seconds or so. So don't go anywhere. Do you guys want a link to this book so you can read along? Not too bad, I'm not giving you one. No, I'm kidding. That should take you to page 18, which is the page that I am going to be starting on. So you can read along with me. I know it finally occurred to me, it's like, you guys could read this too, because I'm on archive.org. I will be right back. Hopefully the air conditioner will not be... Oops. Did not mean to do that. Hopefully the air conditioner won't be too loud when I turn it on. So again, I'll be like 30 seconds. Alright, hopefully the air conditioner cools it down enough that I don't have to turn the fan on in here. Because I know you'll definitely hear that going. Some intense reading it is. It's like we got a battle coming up. Dorothy and Toto are going to be fighting for their lives here, people. You can feel it in the music. I should go to, fight the book, damn it. Fight the book. We can have something less intense. See what Monster Cat has to offer. No, Monster Cat I don't think we'll have anything. Let us try for upbeat, because I think I'm playing epic right now. I am simply little hip hop. Dear God. Chill. We will listen to chill music for low key streams, because we definitely low key. We not fighting the book here. Let's see how this goes. Ooh, we got some more approaching Nirvana. If only Albal will hear. Hip hype is the kind of music you have before hip replacement surgery. Yeah, I need to learn to read. It said hip hop, and right under hip hop was hype, and I just like read down. Hip hype, having some hip hype music. Dancing with our walkers, tell you. And I just hit my nose on the microphone. That's good. Alrighty. Spoopy. Yeah, I love approaching Nirvana. Well, I don't know about the Munchkins. It's the Minchkins, you gotta really watch out for them. Yeah, I turned it to the chill station and I'm getting cinematic soundscapes, and it's like, okay. Oh, let us read. She was awakened by a shock, so sudden and severe that if Dorothy had not been lying on the soft bed, she might have been hurt. As it was, the jar made her catch her breath and wonder what had happened. And Toto put his cold little nose in her face and whined dismally. Dorothy sat up and noticed that the house was not moving. Nor was it dark, for the bright sunshine came in at the window, flooding the little room. She sprang from her bed, and with Toto at her heels, ran and opened the door. So apparently with change brings great shock, but there's sunshine. There's sunshine and cold little puppy noses. This music definitely setting the mood. Much better than the epic music that was fighting the book. Here we are getting ready to, I don't know, slay the Munchkins. So perhaps the secret is preparing for change just enough that you can minimize your shock, but not so much that it's all you do. It's about balancing. Climb the mountain and get into a hip hop battle with a munchkin. This music is definitely taking the story and taking this whole stream in a different direction. It's gone from The Wizard of Oz as holy text to The Wizard of Oz as if it was Lord of the Rings. I'm not complaining. I need to add this song to my liked music. We need to listen to it whenever we read an Oz book. The little girl gave a cry of amazement and looked about her, her eyes growing bigger and bigger at the wonderful sights she saw. The cyclone had set the house down very gently, for a cyclone, in the midst of a country of marvelous beauty. There were lovely patches of green sward all about, with stately trees bearing rich and luscious fruits. Banks of gorgeous flowers were on every hand, and birds with rare and brilliant plumage sang and fluttered in the trees and bushes. A little way off was a small brook, rushing and sparkling along between green banks, and murmuring in a voice very grateful to a little girl who had lived so long on the dry, gray prairies. Also, you notice that the music changed as Dorothy has now gotten out of the house and is seeing the beautiful brook. Quite the contrast to the dry Kansas prairie. Pretzel, you're doing good on the music. This must be the station that I had listened to before, and then I think it was when we had that one silent film, and I went to the epic music because it made it funnier, and then I kind of stayed on the epic music station. We'll stay with the chill station for a while. But yes, the cyclone The cyclone definitely took her to the opposite of what her life had been. The cyclone took her to the upside down. But perhaps that is the lesson, that change can give you what you long for. I mean, they were afraid of the cyclone, and it doesn't seem like it took them to such a bad place. Yeah, just relax, enjoy the cyclone. It'll rock you to sleep, sail your house through the air, take you to lovely lands. Also, looking at that picture, Dorothy looks like the daughter of the Green Wicked Witch. And I'm assuming that's, because the witch is holding the staff with the end, so that's supposed to be Glinda, the Good Witch of the North. Yet she and Dorothy both look green. Maybe it's just my monitor. God damn it, now I'm going to start yawning. I will finish this chapter. I will. While she stood looking eagerly at the strange and beautiful sights, she noticed coming towards her a group of the queerest people she had ever seen. They were not as big as the grown folks she had always been used to, but neither were they very small. In fact, they seemed about as tall as Dorothy, who was a well-grown child for her age, although they were, so far as looks go, many years older. On your monitor, they look green as well. Okay, yeah, because I was like... And I mean, I'm sure maybe it had discolored by the time they scanned the book in. And the three munchkins, I just can't help thinking of, like, the three amigos. Yeah, the pattern baldness, it's hereditary. We don't discuss such things in polite company. It's not polite. We do not discuss it. I mean, third guy don't even got no beard going on. Like, what the heck? Poor guy. Three were men and one a woman, and all were oddly dressed. They wore round hats that rose to a small point a foot above their heads, with little bells around the brims that tinkled sweetly as they moved. So one of those little bells on the hat served the same point as a bell on a cat's collar. The hats of the men were blue. The little woman's hat was white, and she wore a white gown that hung in plaits from her shoulders. Over it were sprinkled little stars that glistened in the sun like diamonds. The men were dressed in blue, in the same shade as their hats, and wore well-polished boots with a deep roll of blue at the tops. The men, Dorothy thought, were about as old as Uncle Henry, for two of them had beards. But the little woman was doubtless much older. Her face was covered with wrinkles, her hair was nearly white, and she walked rather stiffly. As for knowing where the munchkins are, yeah. That would be a good locating system. Where'd those munchkins go off? Oh, I can hear the bells. Let's just follow the bells. And I like how Dorothy decides age based on beards. The men were as old as Uncle Henry because two of them had beards. That's it. If you have a beard, you're as old as Uncle Henry. I guess that means Bebe is very, very young because he shaved his beard. Does shaving your beard make you age backwards? Shaving the face hair makes you younger? Does that mean Bebe is now like a 20-year-old? When these people drew near the house where Dorothy was standing in the doorway, they paused and whispered among themselves as if afraid to come further. But the little old woman walked up to Dorothy and made a low bow and said in a sweet voice, "You are welcome, most noble sorceress, to the land of the Munchkins. We are so grateful to you for having killed the Wicked Witch of the East and for setting our people free from bondage." Could humans be immortal if they continued to shave? Maybe that's what happened to life. The people stopped shaving. They grew their beards and got old. And that is how the human life will end. Because people will stop shaving. Also, here we thought that the cyclone was being good to Dorothy. It brought her to a nice place with a brook and color and people. And now we found out she done murdered somebody. The cyclone actually used Dorothy and her house to kill someone. That's kind of rude. I mean, at least give a little warning if you're going to use someone's house to kill someone. Just some casual murder. Dorothy listened to this speech with wonder. What could the little woman possibly mean by calling her a sorceress and saying she had killed the Wicked Witch of the East? Dorothy was an innocent, harmless little girl who had been carried by a cyclone many miles from her home, and she had never killed anything in all her life. Dorothy deserved a journey to a nice place. The witch deserved death. 2 birds, 1 stone. Or 1 house in this case. I wonder what connotation sorceress has, though. If a witch is evil, what is a sorceress? How do these people view sorcery and sorceresses? Was Dorothy an innocent, harmless little girl now? Her journey to a nice place resulted in the death of another. What if the witch didn't deserve death and that was simply the price for Dorothy to get what she wanted? A cyclone can bring joy and deliver punishment. That would be a good reason to fear it if they had done something wrong. So that would mean that Uncle Henry and Aunt Em were not good people. They must have done something to deserve punishment that they feared the cyclone. But the little woman evidently expected her to answer, so Dorothy said with hesitation, "You are very kind, but there must be some mistake. I have not killed anything." "Your house did anyway," replied the little old woman with a laugh. "And that is the same thing. See?" she continued, pointing to the corner of the house. "There are her 2 toes still sticking out from under a block of wood." Dorothy looked and gave a little cry of fright. There indeed, just under the corner of the great beams the house rested on, were 2 feet sticking out, shod in silver shoes with pointed toes. Oh dear," cried Dorothy, clasping her hands together in dismay. "The house must have fallen on her. Whatever shall we do?" "There's nothing to be done," said the little woman calmly. "So, what does this say about responsibility? Well, you didn't kill her, but your house killed her. It's the same thing." And that doesn't seem very fair. this cyclone is very fickle, or maybe it's just these people that are fickle. But I guess because they're happy that the witch is dead, we're not supposed to care either. Dorothy seems upset by it, though. Poor Dorothy. Obviously, she has a conscience and morals. But who was she? Asked Dorothy. She was the Wicked Witch of the East, as I said, answered the little woman. She has held all the Munchkins in bondage for many years, making them slave for her night and day. Now they are all set free and are grateful to you for the favor. Just think about that image for a moment. She held all the Munchkins in bondage, and they slaved for her night and day. We have found our fetish, my friends. Every story is a fetish story. Even The Wizard of Oz. But perhaps the cyclone is still good. As you said, for something good, somebody else must go without. The Munchkins were without their freedom. You need to be right back for a bit to get some foods. Well, as I think it's just you and me and Bebe in here, perhaps I will end the stream. You go eat your foods, and we can continue on with page 23 on another night. Because I don't want you to go hungry. And I can already feel the yawns coming. So how about that? We will end the stream. Okay. We'll end the stream and we will continue it another time. Thank you so much. I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun. I mean, it only lasted like an hour and 17 minutes, and probably 17 minutes of that was the starting soon screen. So we will end. You get some eats. I will get some sleeps. And we will continue on another night. So good night. Enjoy your eats. And let me see who I shall go and host. No, there's nobody really on. So I think we will just end the stream. Oh, Mike. I don't know if I want to go to Mike's side or just end the stream, because his stream will probably be ending soon. We will just end. So good night, friends. Until next time, when we learn more of this strange world of Oz and what lessons Dorothy is here to teach us. You take care too. Good night.